Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now, and special thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. You can scan this QR code right here if you'd like to join in and play with Underdog. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And this weekend, we've got the NFC and AFC championship games. And although the Niners are not playing this weekend, I'm still going to preview both games and give my personal predictions. And of course, stick around until later in the show because the Niners requested their first coaching interview of the offseason, and it's not as simple as you would think. Before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below. The support has been amazing recently. We're almost at 700 subscribers, so please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like, leave a comment. Once again, huge shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the video, and let's get into it. Let's start with the real ugly one. NFC Championship, Rams and Seahawks, two division rivals for the 49ers. It's tough, man. I don't know who to root for in this game. I don't want to root for either team. But I do know which team I think will win, and I think that team's going to be the LA Rams. Seahawks are a buzzsaw. They are an incredible football team. But the Rams have more championship and more playoff experience. This is something that matters, right? We talked extensively on this show about the 49ers' young core getting playoff experience because it matters. It matters in games like these. The weather is going to be much better in Seattle than it was in Chicago during the divisional round, so I don't anticipate that the Rams will be dealing with major weather issues. I think the Rams can match the physicality of Seattle. They clearly know how to give Darnold problems. They picked him off 4 times when they played in the regular season. I think the major key for the LA Rams, just don't blow the game. They had to make an insane comeback last week against the Chicago Bears. This week, make it easier on yourself. For Seattle, I think it's got to be turnovers, right? It's kind of their bread and butter, their defense. They live off their defense. Stafford's going to give you some chances. So if you can capitalize on those, if you can get a couple of turnovers, if you can take advantage of that gunslinger mentality that Matthew Stafford likes to play with, I certainly think that you could get 2, maybe 3 turnovers out of this Rams offense. Rams offense didn't exactly have a clean game against the Carolina Panthers either. Certainly not playing their best ball right now. But I believe in that Rams defense quite a bit as well. I'm going to take the Rams in this game. I think experience prevails in this one, even on the road. And my Super Bowl pick was Rams over Texans. Texans, of course, were eliminated in the divisional because C.J. Stroud decided to have the worst game I've ever seen in my life. But the Rams are still alive. It sucks, but they were my Super Bowl pick. I'm going to stick with them in this one. Now, let's talk about a game that I am much more interested in because I'd be happy to see either team win. It's the AFC Championship. Now, on the other side of the bracket, it's a very, very interesting game. Jarrett Stidham, the backup quarterback for the Broncos, will be getting the start in this game thanks to Bo Nix's broken ankle. In Bo Nix's first playoff game of his career, or second playoff game of his career, breaks his ankle late in the game, too, against the Bills. Just an absolute heartbreaker for Broncos fans. We feel ya, Broncos fans. If there's any of you guys watching right now, we in Niners faithful know what it's like to lose guys at the worst possible moment. So prayers out to all the Broncos fans. Hopefully Bo Nix can get healthy. He's a pretty fun quarterback to watch. But Jarrett Stidham's also a pretty fun quarterback to watch. He's torched the Niners a couple of times. His first career start was against the Super Bowl Niners in 2023. He was with the Vegas Raiders at that point, I believe. And he kind of cooked them. It was a close game. I believe that game ended in overtime, either late in the fourth quarter or in overtime. Nick Bosa bull rushed the offensive tackle right into Jarrett Stidham's lap. The ball goes fluttering up, and it's picked off by Tashawn Gibson. So Niners got the last laugh over Jarrett Stidham in that game, but he played quite well. And I also thought he was impressive when the Broncos faced the Niners in the preseason. They were the first preseason opponent for the 49ers this year, and there was a lot of talk because they whooped the Niners. The Broncos whooped the Niners in that preseason practice. There was a lot of kind of, the sky is falling talk from Niners camp, me included a little bit. But I maintained even back then that this Broncos defense is special. It's really, 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 it's something. The Broncos defense is really good. And the team as a whole played outstanding this year. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, number 1 and number 2 seeds in the AFC facing off against each other. And they'll be at home, so they get the altitude advantage, which certainly matters in a physical game like football. So, I think Jarrett Stidham will be good, right? I have a lot of confidence in Stidham as a backup quarterback. I think he's one of the 5 to 10 best backup quarterbacks in the league, probably. But the Patriots certainly have a good defense. The Patriots are not here by accident by any means. Yeah, they had one of the easiest schedules ever. Yeah, they played the playoff Chargers and whatever was happening with CJ Stroud. But they're not here by accident. They're mean, especially defensively. They've got some dudes. Milton Williams is a bully. He was a massive, massive signing for that team, and he's been fantastic. Christian Gonzalez is a top 3 cornerback in the NFL. He's ridiculously good. I think Stidham's going to give the Broncos a fighting chance, but I also don't think a chance is going to be good enough against the Patriots defense. And then on the other side of the ball, the Broncos defense, these world beaters, looked surprisingly bad against Buffalo last round, especially against the run. They were giving up carries and, big chunk runs quite often. And yeah, they had some turnovers that really, kept it close and kept them in it. And that's certainly impressive by the Broncos. But I think the Patriots can certainly take advantage of that run defense. They've got Travion Henderson, the rookie running back. He's explosive. Drake May likes to use his legs. My key for the Broncos, you've got to keep forcing turnovers, right? They were surprisingly one of the lowest turnover forcing defenses in the NFL this year, and they were still really good regardless. But for the Patriots, you got to stop turning the ball over. It was sloppy against the Chargers, and it was even worse against the Texans. That game was terrible by both offenses. Drake May and the guys really need to tighten the seatbelt a little bit if they're going to walk into Denver and get a win here. I think whoever wins the turnover battle wins the game. And you could say that about a lot of games, but I'm willing to put money on that for this game right here. Now, before we get into back into some 49ers news, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, Underdog. Football playoffs are here, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the gridiron action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick if your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, rushing yards, receptions, and more. Get them right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the AFC Championship game, and I'm going to pick RJ Harvey for higher than 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns, and Drake May for lower than 0.5 interceptions. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use promo code FOOTBALLFAN to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's a great deal, and that's promo code FOOTBALLFAN. Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/play and get terms DFSTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 helpline at 1-878 or text HOMI 467-369.
So we've got some 49ers coaching news here. The first coaching interview of the offseason for the 49ers, but it was blocked. According to Tom Pelissero on Thursday, the 49ers requested an interview with Falcons secondary coach Justin Hood for a high-ranking staff position, but Atlanta blocked it, per source. Very interesting, right? Atlanta blocking the interview, 49ers making their first official interview request. The word high-ranking staff position, does that mean defensive coordinator? I mean, it certainly could. Hood worked with the defense, right? The secondary coach, working with the corners and the defensive backs. And Justin Hood's an African-American man. This could be a candidate to fulfill one of the Rooney Rule interviews. If you're not familiar, if you've got an open coordinator or head coach or general manager spot, you've got to interview 2 candidates of color before you can make an official hiring. It's a great rule. I like that teams do it. And Justin Hood could potentially be a candidate to fill one of those interview slots. He was also, part of a really talented defensive staff in Atlanta. The defensive backs, they were good. They were good for Atlanta this past season, and they weren't the only ones, right? I mean, we already talked about defensive line coach for the Falcons, Nate Ollie, on this show as a potential defensive coordinator. option, right? We've already been looking at this Atlanta staff, and Justin Hood coming from that staff could certainly be a guy that the Niners have their eye on at defensive coordinator. But there's been some conversation around some 49ers spaces about maybe this isn't about the defense coordinator. Akash Anavarthan had a good follow on Twitter, by the way. You should go ahead and follow him. He had a theory. Could this be Raheem Morris's doing? Now, of course, Raheem Morris, former Atlanta Falcons head coach, he hired Justin Hood in Atlanta. Could Morris be planning on coming to San Francisco and he's trying to poach some of his former staffers? Certainly possible, right? A high-ranking staff position. Who knows? Could that mean DB's coach? Could that mean defensive pass game coordinator? Whatever you want to call it. I'm sure the 49ers would certainly be interested in bringing in Morris and Hood. There's the connection there that's quite obvious. But also, another theory is that maybe Robert Saleh is taking 49ers defensive back coach Daniel Bullock's with him to Tennessee. We haven't heard any official requests from Robert Saleh and the Titans yet. We know that special teams coordinator Brant Boyer is going to stay in San Francisco. That's been confirmed. But Saleh's let go of the defensive coordinator in Tennessee, and he's starting to let go of some of the position coaches as well. So we shall see if he brings over any 49ers staffers to Tennessee. If he does bring over Daniel Bullock, then the 49ers would have an open spot at their defensive back coach as well as defensive coordinator. So Justin Hood would certainly fit that. Now, unfortunately, the interview was blocked, right? Hood seems like a great candidate. There's plenty of reasons to have interest. Hood's young defensive backs for the Atlanta Falcons, Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts, they were great this season. But like I said, the interview was blocked. The 49ers will not be interviewing Justin Hood, and it seems like Hood will be staying with the Falcons. So why ever they wanted Hood, whatever reason you could come up with, they can't have him. So now this leaves the question, why did they want him? And I think we get that answer when we find out who else they are planning on interviewing. If it's another guy from the Atlanta staff, if it is Nate Ollie, then maybe this is sort of a Raheem Morris situation. If it's someone like, Denard Wilson, who was just let go by Robert Saleh, Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator last year, did a pretty decent job with not a lot of talent there. I'd be all for Wilson, by the way. This is kind of a side tangent, but Wilson was, a former Ravens staffer, former Mike McDonald guy. So having Wilson on the staff to sort of give some insight into how to attack the Mike McDonald defense, that would be phenomenal. I'd be all for bringing in Denard Wilson, but there's no reported interest yet. But of course, we will keep an eye on all these interviews. We will keep an eye on all these candidates, and we'll update you here on the show. Who would you like the 49ers to interview for defensive coordinator? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. And speaking of the comments section, we're going to talk about some 2026 offseason needs. I've got 3 comments here. Thank you to everybody who commented. I read every single comment, even the ones that I do not feature. So if you want to be featured, just comment. The more you comment, the more likely you are to be featured. Now let's get into our first comment here from Salty. Salty says, actually, I see the team priority is the linebackers. They're like paper thin. A 6th, 7th rounder draftee is not going to help this team defensively. That's a recipe for disaster. I guarantee those linebackers will not last long. Once the defense gets hurt, it will affect also the offense, and the entire team will be depleted. Well, I agree with some of what you're saying, Salty. I think having Fred Warner back will help, right? And yeah, it seemed like the depth at linebacker wasn't great, but also that's because you're down to your 5th and 6th linebackers. There are 0 teams in the NFL really that can survive with their 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th linebackers on the field. It's just not a recipe for success for anybody. So yes, I think the depth looked probably worse than it actually is, given that literally all of the linebackers got hurt. However, if you're going to add depth and you're trying to fix that problem, that usually happens in the 6th and 7th rounds because you get those cheap 4-year contracts, right? That is a big deal. Having guys on rookie contracts and specifically, lower end rookie contracts, that's very valuable if they are contributing on the field. So, assuming that those 6th and 7th round linebackers aren't going to be good, Sure, you want to say that it's a good guess that a sixth round pick isn't going to be any good in the NFL? Sure, it could be a good guess based on the numbers, but it's not helpful. If you assume all those players are bad, you're never going to end up with a Tom Brady or a Brock Purdy or a Jawan Jennings or an Elijah Mitchell or, whatever. You need to take chances on these guys, or else you're never going to get anywhere. If you're not taking any chances, then nothing happens and you lose. You lose all the time. I think the Niners absolutely should draft a linebacker, whether it's on day 3 or it's earlier. If it's on day 2, maybe even day 1, because they need depth. They need depth very badly. I certainly agree on that front. Now, comment number 2 from Robert. Robert says, it's a steep hill to climb to be the best in our division. We need a lot on both sides of the ball. CMC needs some help and the O-line, linebackers, safeties, and D-line. I'm not confident that we'll get the people we need. I'm usually optimistic, but I'm not for next season. Everyone is hurt all the time, plus no Kittle. Tell me something to change my opinion. Well, listen, Robert, hold your head up high. I know it's tough to be optimistic, but that's part of it. Being optimistic in the face of challenges, that's what it's all about. 49ers, they can take down anybody. They beat the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles despite one of the most injured rosters I've ever seen, right? Now, if you want to look pragmatically, there's plenty of holes to fill on the roster. We all know this. Nobody's trying to hide from that. And it's not going to all happen this offseason, right? You guys just get that out of your heads right now. There will be holes on this team going into week 1. Guaranteed. Why? Because it never does. There's always going to be holes, right? Every team has at least one hole heading into week 1 every single year. It is so hard to build a full roster of 53 players and have 0 weaknesses. 0. I don't think I've ever seen it. Not once in my entire time watching football, not once in history, right? So there's going to be at least one hole on this roster. But what you can do is you can attack as many problems as possible this offseason, right? I don't think this is about, we have to fix all the problems. It's how many problems can this team address? How many holes can they fill? How many things can they get right? Okay? And you got to make sure these aren't problems in the future either. I don't want to see a ton of one-year Band-Aid stopgap solutions. I don't think that's productive for the 49ers. I don't think Band-Aid options are going to help this team get to the Super Bowl. I want to see real future solutions. I want to see them build their nucleus, like ESPN reporter Nick Wagner said on the Guy Haberman show. You've got to build your nucleus, right? Niners are still in the position of putting together their next nucleus. They have their current nucleus. They don't have their future nucleus. So getting guys who can contribute in the future is a big deal. I don't want to see a lot of one-year deals this offseason. I want to see some 3-year deals, some 4-year deals, some rookies brought in who can really contribute, right? It's tough. It's not going to be easy to do because every team in the NFL is trying to do this, but I think the 49ers certainly can. I think they'll be more aggressive than they were this past offseason. And I think we might see, a big move or two. Maybe they trade up in the draft. Maybe they go get a wide receiver. Maybe they get a guy like A.J. Brown. Maybe something crazy happens, right? We see crazy things happen with the 49ers all the time. Remember back in 2023, people didn't really expect the 49ers to go get anybody in free agency. What did they do? On the very first day that free agency was opened, they went and got Javon Hargrave, who was one of the 5 best players available in free agency. Now, did that work out? Not really. But the 49ers have shown that they are more than willing to swing big, right? They took about 1 year's break from making really big, aggressive moves, and now I think they'll be back to their old ways. And you know what? With the injuries, even the 49ers have been lucky with injuries before. In 2023, they were one of the healthiest teams in the NFL. And remember, 2023, that was the Super Bowl year. That's a year when they had a loaded roster and really could not afford any injuries because, if you're getting hurt that year, you're losing out on potentially a Super Bowl opportunity, right? And they were healthy for nearly the entire year. There's just no need to worry about injuries in the offseason. There's no point. They're not playing games until August, right? Don't think about the injuries right now. Focus on what we could add to this team because otherwise it's just not productive. One more comment now from Matt. Bye, Brandon. Bye-bye. Open some money to spend on someone legitimate. Yes, this guy gets it. Niners will get cap room relief and cash relief from getting rid of Brandon Ayuk. Hopefully the 49ers are able to put that money to good use and be aggressive with it. So that is all for today, folks. What do you think the 49ers do in free agency? And what do you think the biggest need on the 49ers is? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Please leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. We are so close to 700 subscribers, so please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I'm Brady Grustas, @GrustasBrady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you next week.